Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're really getting into something I think fascinates everyone who lives with an animal.
Absolutely. We're going straight into the science behind that connection.
Yeah, how our pets, dogs, and cats specifically actually figure us out, how they process human emotions, our signals, our commands.
It's all about interspecies communication, really. And we've got some great sources lined up today that look beyond just, cute stories. We're talking visual cues, sounds, even smells.
Smells, okay, interesting. And the goal here is to unpack that big question, right? Is this ability to read us something they're born with, thanks to domestication?
Or is it something they pick up over their lives just by living with us? That classic nature versus nurture debate, essentially.
The whole phylogenetic inheritance versus ontogeny, the individual learning part.
Exactly. Where does genetics end and lived experience begin? It looks like they work together, but figuring out how is a tricky part.
Okay, let's dive in. Part one, emotional detectives. Started with dogs because, well, there's a ton of research there. They seem to be real experts at putting different signals together.
Oh, definitely. The sources call them bimodal interpreters. They don't just react to an angry face or an angry voice. They seem to process the whole emotional package.
So they functionally understand happiness, anger, sadness.
Right. And it's not just guesswork. We have physiological proof. Studies track their heart rate, um, body temperature, even hormone levels like oxytocin.
And these things change depending on the emotion they're exposed to.
Yes, differentially. They have distinct internal reactions. They aren't just acting happy or scared. They're physiologically responding.
And the key is that integration, the bimodal part you mentioned, combining sight and sound.
Precisely. So in experiments, if a dog hears, say, a happy voice, they'll look longer at a picture of a happy human face compared to a neutral or angry one.
Ah, so they're cross-referencing,
Yeah.
matching the sound to the image.
Exactly. They put the visual and auditory information together to get a complete picture of the emotional state. It's quite sophisticated.
Now, what about cats? We often think of them as maybe a bit more aloof. Do they have this skill too?
They do. Those sources call them subtle recognizers, which I think is perfect. They also show this cross-modal matching ability.
For human emotions as well, like happiness and anger.
Yep, human happiness and anger. And also for cat-specific emotional sounds like a hiss or a purr, matched with corresponding cat facial expressions.
Okay, so they are reading us and each other, maybe just less obviously than dogs. Do we see physiological changes in them too?
We do. Their behavior changes based on the emotion's intensity. They look longer at faces that match strong signals. Think a cat's hiss or human anger, even human happiness.
And stress levels.
They show higher stress markers when they encounter intense negative signals like that cat hiss or human anger. So they definitely register the negativity, whether it's from us or another cat.
Hmm. But here's where it gets interesting, right? Because even if they can read emotions similarly, how they interact with us, especially using gaze, seems really different between dogs and cats.
That's a crucial point. Dogs, as we know, often use prolonged eye contact. It's part of that cooperative bonding thing shaped by domestication.
Look, cats.
Cats tend to do the opposite. Research shows they actually look away sooner if a familiar human stares directly at them. It's almost like gaze avoidance.
Wait, that seems contradictory. If they're reading our faces for emotional cues, why avoid eye contact?
It might be about efficiency. They gather the emotional data they need from the face quickly, but they don't seem to use that sustained gaze as a bonding tool in the same way dogs do.
So, functional information gathering over, say, deep social connection via eye contact.
That seems to be the pattern. They figure out your mood, but sustained mutual gaze isn't necessarily their preferred way to interact. It highlights just how different their social priorities might be.
That difference in social approach is a great segue into communication hierarchy. When we ask our pets to do something, especially dogs, what matters more? Our words or our actions? Our gestures?
Right, and there's a fantastic study on this using highly trained dogs. These were water rescue dogs, so they knew their commands well.
Okay. What did they test?
They tested commands given verbally only, gesturally only, and then, this is the clever part, conflicting signals, like saying come, but gesturing stay.
The conflict test. So first, what worked better on its own, words or gestures?
Gestures. The dogs were significantly better at following unimodal gestural commands compared to unimodal verbal ones.
Really? Just the hand signal was clearer than just the word.
Apparently so for these trained dogs, but the conflict test really sealed it when the word and the gesture disagreed.
Let me guess, they followed the gesture.
Overwhelmingly. If the owner said come but signaled stay, the dog stayed. The gesture trumped the word.
Wow. Okay, so maybe less talking, more showing is the key for dog training.
It certainly suggests gestures are incredibly powerful cues for them. And another layer to this is who is giving the command.
Right, the familiarity factor. Does it matter if it's the owner or a stranger?
It matters hugely, but mostly for the words. Gestural signals, like pointing or those obedience cues, seem pretty universal.
Hmm.
Dogs responded almost equally well to gestures from their owner or a stranger.
So a point is a point, no matter who's doing it.
Pretty much. It seems like a highly generalized signal. But verbal commands, totally different story.
How so?
Dogs performed much worse and took longer to respond to verbal commands like sit or come
Oh.
when they were given by a stranger compared to their owner.
Okay, that makes intuitive sense. The word itself isn't enough. It's tied to the familiar voice, the tone, the whole context with the owner.
Exactly. The verbal message is harder for them to generalize. It depends heavily on that established relationship and familiarity. The gesture, though, seems to cut through that.
Fascinating. Okay, let's shift senses now. From sight and sound to something maybe even more primal, smell. You mentioned emotional scent transfer.
Yes, the secret olfactory channel. This is pretty amazing stuff. A study collected sweat from human donors who were feeling intense fear or intense happiness or were in a neutral state.
Okay, so they got the actual human chemical signature of fear and happiness and then exposed dogs to it.
Right. They introduced these scent samples into the dog's environment, mostly labs and golden retrievers in this particular study.
And what happened when the dogs smelled the fear sweat?
The effects were really clear. Their heart rate went up significantly. They showed more stress behaviors, licking their lips, pacing around.
So they physiologically reacted to the smell of human fear.
Yes, but here's the really telling part. They also showed a big increase in owner-directed behaviors. They sought out their owner, tried to stay close.
Wow, they literally smell trouble on us and run to us. That sounds like the secure base effect we see in attachment theory.
Precisely. The fear chemosignal seems to trigger that attachment response. Something's wrong. I need my safe person.
Incredible. What about the happiness smell? Did that do anything?
It did. Compared to the fear condition, dogs exposed to the happiness sweat showed lower stress levels, lower heart rates. And interestingly,
Yes.
they actually increased the time they spent interacting with the stranger in the room.
Oh, that's a neat contrast. Fear smell drives them to the owner. Happiness smell makes them feel safe enough to check out someone new.
Exactly. It suggests this olfactory communication is constantly influencing their social behavior, making them feel secure or insecure based on our underlying emotional state, chemically speaking.
This must have been so important during domestication, right? Being able to sense danger from your human partner just by their scent.
Hugely adaptive, you'd imagine. It's strong evidence for this ongoing subconscious emotional dialogue mediated by smell.
Which brings us right back to that core question. Nature versus nurture. Domestication obviously played a huge role, selecting for dogs that were less fearful, more sociable with humans.
Right. And one key outcome of that selection pressure was likely the extension of their critical socialization period. In dogs, it lasts much longer, maybe up to 12 or 16 weeks, compared to wolves.
Giving them a much wider window to bond with humans and learn our ways, that's the nature part. The genetic predisposition, the potential given by domestication.
That's the phylogenetic toolkit, yes. But does that potential automatically translate into skill? Do they need the nurture part, the individual experience?
And this is where something like the kennel dog experiment comes in.
Exactly. That study compared pet dogs raised in typical family homes with lots of human interaction to kennel dogs who had much less individualized human contact.
And the task was following a human point.
Yes, a classic test of understanding human communicative intent. They tested both close pointing and pointing to something further away.
Okay, moment of truth. Who did better?
The pet dogs, significantly better. They outperformed the kennel dogs on both types of pointing cues.
So nurture wins this round, or at least it's essential.
It really supports the idea that while domestication gave dogs the capacity to understand us, they need that individual social learning in the ontogeny to actually master these skills. It's a synergy. Genetics loads the gun, environment pulls the trigger, so to speak.
Genetics provides the software, experience teaches them how to run the specific programs.
That's a great way to put it. You need both.
And thinking about that individual experience and bonding, what about specialized training? Does intense training, like for guide dogs or rescue dogs, change the fundamental attachment bond they have with their handler?
That's another really interesting question tackled using the Strange Situation Test, or SST. It's typically used for human infants and caregivers.
Right, to assess attachment security. How did the trained dogs do?
Well, the studies found that all dogs, whether they were highly trained working dogs or just companion pets, showed clear signs of secure attachment to their owners.
Interesting.
Things like the secure base effect. They'd explore and play more comfortably with a stranger if their owner was present. And they always showed a strong preference for greeting their owner when reunited.
So the intense job training didn't override that basic bond. It didn't make them, I don't know, more detached or purely task-focused.
It affected some behaviors, sure. Trained dogs were sometimes less exploratory or maybe a bit more passive in the test compared to, say, young, untrained dogs. But the quality of the attachment bond itself seemed unchanged by the training.
So the bond develops just through everyday life, living together, regardless of the specific job training.
That seems to be the case. The deep emotional connection forms through that shared daily experience, not just through formal training sessions.
Okay, one last area before we wrap up. Sex differences in dogs. Even after, 30,000 years living alongside us, some fundamental male-female differences persist.
They do, yeah, which strongly suggests these traits have deep evolutionary roots. We haven't completely bred them out.
So what are some key differences the research highlights?
Well, male dogs often tend to score higher on measures of boldness and sometimes aggression. Less fearful, maybe higher courage scores in certain tests, possibly linked to more risk-taking.
Okay. And females?
Females sometimes show higher visual focusing, like
Hmm.
they might gaze longer in tasks requiring attention to detail, such as object permanence tests, suggest maybe greater focus on specific social or physical cues.
Interesting. Any differences in sociability?
Some studies suggest females show higher interspecific sociability, meaning cooperation with humans, but potentially lower intraspecific sociability, so maybe less overtly social with other dogs compared to males in some contexts. It's complex.
And I remember reading something about paw preference. Is that still a finding?
Yeah, there have been reports, though it's not always consistently found across all studies or tasks. But some research suggested a tendency for males to be more left-pawed and females more right-pawed for certain actions.
Huh. Subtle signs that their ancestral heritage is still humming away under the surface.
Exactly. Domestication shaped them profoundly, but it didn't erase everything from their wild past.
Okay, so let's try and bring all this together. What's the big takeaway for you, the listener, trying to understand your own dog or cat better?
I think the main thing is appreciating the complexity. Your pet's understanding of you is this amazing mix of ancient genetics, the groundwork laid by domestication, and all the learning that happens day in, day out living with you.
It's both nature and nurture working together.
Absolutely. And specifically for dogs, remember how powerful those nonverbal cues are. Gestures often speak louder than words, especially if the words are coming from someone unfamiliar. And don't forget that invisible layer of smell communication.
Right, the gestures seem almost like a universal dog language, while words are much more personal and context dependent.
Precisely. The gesture is often the clearest message, especially for action commands.
Which leads perfectly into that final thought to leave you with. We just discussed how the literal smell of human fear can make a dog's heart race and send them running to their owner.
Yeah, an immediate, measurable, cross-species transfer of an emotional state via chemistry.
So if just the potent scent of acute fear or happiness has such a profound instant effect, what about all the other, much subtler emotional scents we're likely giving off constantly? Our everyday stress, our moments of quiet contentment, maybe sadness, things we're not even aware we're broadcasting chemically.
Hmm.
How are those continuous low-level chemical signals shaping our pets' inner worlds, their sense of security, their behavior, maybe even deepening that incredible dedication they show us? It suggests there's this constant, silent, chemical conversation happening 24/7 that underpins the entire relationship in ways we've barely begun to understand.